Okay. So the first question I want to ask you is about your journey, like how it was started, because whatever you are doing is like a charter accountant and a life coach, which is a completely a different thing. Like how this all started. I want to know that.
Well, I was an accountant as normal accountant.
Okay.
I
Okay.
had gone through some horrible experiences in my life, an abusive relationship and a trauma where I almost lost my life. And because of that
Okay.
trauma, I had PTSD for like about 3 years. And
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that time will heal it, but time didn't heal me at all. And even 3 years later, I still had PTSD. I still had nightmares, reminding me of the trauma all the time. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, something needs to change. I can't just, rely on time to fix me. And that's when I started getting into personal development and everything. And I attended various seminars, read books and stuff. And I came across NLP, and I found NLP very, very powerful. It actually, from a book from Tony Robbins, actually, if you know my story,
Okay. Okay.
he shared some stories in NLP. And so
Mm-hmm.
in his book, Awaken the Giant Within. And so I came across NLP from there. And actually, it
Mm-hmm.
helped me get rid of my nightmares, a problem that I was struggling for 3 years. And I was like, whoa, what is this NLP stuff? It's so freaking powerful. I want to learn about it. So I went and learned about it. I took a training course just for my own sake. But what I got out of that training course was that I became so much lighter. I became so much free. My confidence level just boosted up. I left so much garbage out of my body. Like I felt like I was carrying a 40-kilo load in my shoulders from my life,
Mm-hmm.
from my experiences, and I just literally got to
Mm-hmm.
drop them, and I felt very light and very happy. And I just felt like I'm a different person, and that inspired me to give that gift of transformation to other people because I thought so many other people are struggling like me, like so many women like who've been through abuse and trauma in the past are struggling like me, and oh my God, they don't know that this is possible. They don't know that they can be so transformed, so confident, they can be so happy, so light. I wanted to literally gift that transformation or that happiness to someone else's life, and that's why I decided to become a life coach. So I absolutely didn't have intention at first, but it's how it happened. Like life brought
It
it to
happened.
me in a way, yeah. So I'm very blessed
Okay.
actually that I came across this
Mm-hmm.
and I became a life coach.
So didn't you felt any kind of difficulties like doing different stuffs and all?
Yes, initially it was very different. First thing, obviously, coaching is so much different compared to accounting.
Okay.
Accounting is very
Okay.
introverted kind of. Accounting is
Mm-hmm.
introverted kind of industry, and coaching is very extroverted. You gotta be talking and everything. So it was very unknown area for me. So it was a bit hard. But also, before I started, I asked myself this question: why do I want to be a life coach? What is my purpose behind doing this? Because I was very concerned because a lot of people go
Mm-hmm.
into these shiny objects, like become
Yeah.
want to become a coach or a motivational speaker for the sake
Exactly.
of
Exactly.
significance.
Exactly.
And so I was very
Mm-hmm.
concerned, like, is it really significance that's driving me? Am I looking for significance, or is it really something that I want to pursue for a long time? Because I really asked myself that question. And when I digged deeper, I realized that my top value is contribution. And life
True.
coaching is about contributing to someone's life. And that's exactly, and I find that contribution from accounting as well. And that's why both of them, even though they're so different, it makes sense to me because accounting, I'm contributing to my clients' finances, their wealth, and their tax and everything. And as a life coach, I'm contributing to their happiness and their personal life and confidence and all those kinds of things. So for me, it's about confidence. Sorry, contribution.
So I can see there you have got the same clients in your charter accountant field also and in your life coach field also. Same clients.
No, totally different.
No. Okay,
No,
totally different.
totally. We could chartered accounting field. It's very much looking after people's wealth and taxes and everything, right? Making like I look after big businesses and also individuals as well. Here in Australia, we need to lodge tax returns, so I look after their yearly tax returns as well as companies like their financials, their management reporting, and all those kind of things. So no, my client base is totally different. Like in life coaching, most of my clients are like very they're mostly women. I have men as well, but most of the time women
Cool.
feel comfortable with me and they
Mm-hmm.
choose me. And so they're mostly women, and they're like really struggling with their self confidence. They're really struggling with expressing themselves, feeling worthy, feeling good enough, and they're in abusive relationship or had an experience of being in an abusive relationship, and they're constantly like kind of not being able to set their boundaries. And so I just help them set their boundaries, be strong, be emotionally independent, and all those kind of things. Whereas accounting, my client base is totally different. They are all business people and business owners and all that kind of stuff. So totally different.
Okay. So what is the best thing you love about your job, like as a life coach?
The best thing that I love about my job as a life coach is the contribution, is the impact that I can have on someone's life. And when I see the transformation in my client, that gives me a deep personal level satisfaction when I see that changes. Because literally, when I start a coaching program with my client, I ask them, what do you want to achieve? Tell me your goal. And how will you know that you have achieved this goal? Because that's important. I start with this question. And then as we go progress, I will sit with them and I'll say, have we achieved this goal? Have we achieved this goal? And they'll say, tick, tick, tick. That is the moment where I feel like, wow, I did it. Like, I made them achieve the goal, something that they thought was not possible. So yeah, that's what it is for me.
So was there anything like you were not satisfied with your chartered accountant job or anything like that?
No, not at all. If I was, I would have left it, right? I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I'm maintaining my full-time job and also becoming a life coach in the same time. It demands a lot of my time. My job is already demanding, in a way, and then also this life coaching stuff it demands a lot of my time. But no, I find both of them equally enjoying. So no.
Okay, as I can see, you have helped a lot of ladies as well as gents regarding overthinking and suicidal thoughts. So I want to know, how do they take exactly what comes in their mind? I think because tension, busyness and all, I think each and everyone is busy these days, right? And everyone has got some problems in their life. And that people, they don't get depressed, right? And some of them got like they go to depression and all. So what do you think? What comes in their mind, or how do they take it? That thing.
Well, from a neuro-linguistic programming point of view, there is always something that triggers them to have a particular emotion. So there's always a thought, like an internal representation, which could be a picture in their head, a voice, or like a self-talk, like a dialogue that they have with themselves. Something comes in their head, and then that triggers a certain emotion, because your body is used to creating that emotion when it sees that picture or that thought comes into your head. So it's always a thought that starts it, and then there is an emotion, like your body dumps a whole lot of stress hormones in your body, right? That's what it happens. And then you just become so much looped in this pattern of thinking and thinking and thinking that your body does not know that it is in a stress mode, right? And when you're in a stress mode, your body is full of stress hormones, and it's not concentrating on healing or anything. It's just concentrating on like fight or flight mode, right? So it's just trying to protect you, thinking that you are in danger. And that's when, like, if for people who are depressed or suicidal, they cannot regulate their emotional state. They cannot literally switch off their flight or fright mode in their body. And they just, there's so much negativity inside them, so much negative emotions and negative thoughts inside them that they cannot break out of it. And that's why they become suicidal. That's why they drown in depression. It's just, they're not emotionally hygienic in terms of like having a negative emotion and then being able to let it go and tap into positivity.
So I think that kind of people, they don't share their problems with others, right?
Yes, that's right. The thing is,
So I
like,
think
most of the people like who have depression, they feel like their problem is their own, and they do not want to share with people, and also they don't believe that there is any other solution to that problem, because when you are in a negative state, it's like you are inside a box. How can you see a problem to that solution, like solution to that problem, until you get out of the box? You can't see it inside the box. You're just seeing the walls, right? And that's exactly what it is. Like when you're in a depressed state, you cannot see any solution, and that's why people are suicidal. When they're suicidal, they just have these lot of problems. They just see problems and problems and problems. It's about focus. They're focused on the problem, on the negativity. Then they're not focused on what can I do else. And so the first step they have to do is actually step out of that negativity, like as in like come up from the box, and then they can see the world around them, and then they will see a different perspective that there is a solution to it.
then I think we should also try to find out, is there anyone around us? Then I think we should help them, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Of course. If there is anyone you feel like they are depressed, make them feel
Mm-hmm.
special, make them feel heard. Don't force them. Hey, what's wrong with you? Because most of the
Mm-hmm.
time, this is what happens with people who have depression. Like people are
Mm-hmm.
so judgmental and they don't understand what's going on with them. They will be like, this person is always so negative and so low. I don't want to hang out with them. They don't recognize that they're actually going through a depression episode. What they really need to do, if you have a friend who you think could be depressed, is that you have to tell them, hey, I'm here to listen to you. You don't have to share anything with me if you're not comfortable, but if you want to talk to someone, I'm here. Make them feel that you are there. And go into their bubble. So try and understand. Just listen to them, make them talk. Don't force them. But if just make them feel heard and understood, because that's what they want. That's what they need.
Okay. So one thing I was very curious to ask you, like I have seen you attending some Tony Robbins session. So what kind of session was that exactly? I want to know that.
Tony Robbins, attended his seminar, 4 days long, UPW, Unleash the Power Within. It was magical. It was just magical. I walked on fire in that seminar. So he has a firework thing, and it changed me massively. It was like my gateway to the world of personal development in a way. I'd been reading books and podcasts before that, but not necessarily that much into personal development. And I kind of understood the power of positivity and the power of conditioning your mind from that event. We used to be learning for 14 hours, intense days, jumping around all day, learning all day. And when you actually go back to your hotel room, you're not tired. You're not ready to go to bed. You're that energetic. And I'm like, wow, this is how much you can condition yourself. And then when I walked on that fire, when Tony said, you will all walk on fire, I was like, no, I don't think so. But he conditioned us in a way that I actually walked on the fire. I didn't feel anything. My feet didn't burn. And that's when I realized the power of your belief, the conditioning of your body, your mind. And I was like, oh my God, I totally need to be immersed in this. And how could I never get out of this world? No, never. Just go deeper. It's like it was the start of the rabbit hole for me. You can't have enough of it. It just keep on going and going and going inside. Yeah,
Tony
so that's what it
Robbins, I
was.
think the name is enough. I have read some of his book and that was great.
Oh, he is a legend. I'm his biggest fan. And honestly,
Yeah.
Tony Robbins is the person, even though he's never met me, let's say, in that way, but his books, his events, his seminars are what changed my life. I got out of my PTSD, and it inspired me to become an NLP practitioner and a coach who I am today. So Tony Robbins is the person that has this massive impact in my life. So he's my big, what do you call, idol.
That's cool. So you are running, I think, coachforlife.com, right?
That's right.
So your services, do you provide your services to the people around Australia only or outside Australia also?
Oh, I have clients all over the world. I have clients in Europe. I have clients in America. I have clients in India. I have clients in Australia. Most of my clients are in Australia, but I have clients all over the world.
Okay, so how do you do that? Online or anything else? Suppose if
Yes.
somebody wants.
Yeah,
Okay, online.
all of my programs are online. It's all video call based, and right now I run group coaching programs as well. So I run it through Zoom. So everyone comes to the Zoom, and I teach them and I train them something. And when I do one-on-one coaching as well, it's I do video call from Zoom as well. And so all of my coaching programs are all online. I don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to go anywhere. Just from the comfort of your home.
Okay, that's cool. So here, one guy is asking a question. One of my friend, Rabbani, is telling that how do we find somebody is depressed or not?
Okay, the symptoms of depression is like someone who's really tired, who cannot wake up out of the bed, and they cannot see themselves. They just isolate themselves. Like they start backing off from social events, and like you're inviting them for a party, and they repeatedly say no, make excuses, and their energy is low, and they're not talking. They're being very quiet and sitting at a place. Their face doesn't look very happy. You don't see them happy for a long time. They're just this sad face all the time, and they're really rejecting your company. Like that is a massive sign of depression, because when people start rejecting the company and no obvious reason, they are potentially depressed.
Okay, so being a lady, you are involved in different stuffs, right? So I have seen the ladies in my country. They are like, I'm a lady, so I can't do a lot of stuff like professionally and all. So what do you want to tell to those ladies?
Get out of that shell, ladies. You are perfectly capable of doing everything that you want. And all this is probably our cultural conditioning, because culturally we're trained so much to think that we're ladies, we have limitations, we have to look after the husbands, we have to get married, we have to have kids. All of that is, I want to say, sorry, swear word, bullshit. It's not right. It's the limitation that the society has put on you. If you really want to do something, if you really want to go out and do something, no one will be able to stop you. It's just, just follow your dreams. Go ahead and do what you want. There is no limitation. There is no difference between a man or a woman. What it needs for you to be successful is your dedication, your passion, and your determination, right? And nothing else. And you have that. There is no difference between men and women in that aspect.
Right. If a lady utilizes her power, then I think she can do anything.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, it's the same for everyone, right? Like if you tap into your power, if you tap into your passion, and you're really dedicated, you're really disciplined with what you want to do, and you really are clear where you want to go, no one can stop you, really.
Right. Okay. So what kind of people come to you? Like what age categories? Like you have your clients like.
I have clients from 18 years old to 40, 45 years old as well. So my oldest client probably would be 45, and my youngest would be 18.
So in today's world, like what are the biggest problem, or what is that biggest problem you receive from your clients? Like they are facing this thing.
Well, currently there is a lot of self-confidence issues because right now, we are conditioned by the social media, the television. Everyone is telling you that you're not good enough. The cosmetic brands are saying, "Oh, you are not fair enough. That's why you buy this cream." Right? They're saying you're not fit enough. That's why go to this gym, buy my program. Everyone is trying to make you feel unworthy, and that is a massive, massive issue. And a lot of people, and even in Nepal, a lot of people struggle with self-confidence. I literally was approached by one of the magazine editors, and he said we did a poll in Nepal and like asking the younger generation, what is your major problem that you struggle with? The biggest problem was self-confidence issues, and so that is what I see among the people. And also another thing that I noticed, obviously I'm not in that let's say niche at the moment, but a lot of people still reach out to me. Abusive relationships, a lot of women, especially, like men are very abusive. Especially what I've noticed is from our South Asian kind of background, where males are dominant, and then they are here in Australia and the woman is perfectly independent, and then that makes the man insecure, and then he starts abusing her to keep her in control, for himself to feel worthy. And then she's just tolerating that, and she's over it, and she calls me and cries with me. And then so that's the massive problem that I have been seeing, especially among Nepalese generation here in Australia and also in Nepal.
Okay, so here we have again one question. It's like, how do we get control over the between 15 and 20 who is moody upon everything?
Like the teenage hormones.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what they mean, right? Yeah, well, teenage hormones, it makes you moody, but then like I think for everyone, you have to be aware. First thing is awareness. You have to be aware of what you're feeling and what is causing it. There's this rage, right? There is this rage, and every little thing kind of triggers you when I remember I used to be very angry when I was a teenager as well. My mom used to be like, "Oh, you were a biggest problem when you were a teenager." So I know that. But I wasn't aware that I was getting angry at little things, like I didn't know what was causing me to be triggered like that. So the first step to control is being aware. Right, so understand what is it that you're feeling right now. Are you actually feeling angry, or is it something else? And the anger is more like a covering emotion, right? Sometimes what happens is people don't get what they want, and then they're really hurt and upset inside, but they can't show that, and that's why anger becomes like the covering emotion as well, right? So when you're moody and everything, you have to be aware, and then meditation really, really helps as well, because meditation helps you control your mind, your thoughts, and also your emotional state, right? And controlling your emotional state, step into more positivity. When you are living in the space of positivity most often, it's more easy for you to control your emotions and be in charge of your emotions, right? So keep in charge of your thoughts, keep in charge of your emotions, and just stay more in positive energy. That's what I would say.
Okay, so between these 12 years, didn't you ever visited Nepal, or you are at Australia itself?
I've been a very naughty child. In the last 12 years, I've visited Nepal only 2 times.
2 times.
2 times, yes.
Okay,
I think
okay,
first one was after 3 or 4 years, and then after that, I think a year or so after I visited, and then I think it's been 5, 6, 7 years I haven't been to Nepal. I really wanted to go to Nepal this year, but then look, the COVID thing happened, so we can't travel. But I'm really, really wanting to visit Nepal. I will once this whole thing is over. Yeah. So
okay. So 2 or 3 times only.
2 times.
Okay,
That's it.
okay, okay. So glad to know that Nepali lady is doing something great over Australia, right?
Thank you. Thank you
So,
very much.
okay, so how do you manage this all stuff like taking care of own self, taking care of your job, and again taking care of those people? So I think
Yes, it takes
you
a.
might be good in management. I think.
Mm, I don't know if I'm good actually in management, but what it comes down to for me is discipline and the commitment. For me, my clients, I committed to them. For me, like when someone signs up with my coaching program, I feel responsible for them. I feel responsible for their results and giving them the support and the transformation that they need. Obviously, results in coaching is not on the coach, it's on the client themselves, but I feel responsible to give my 100%. So doesn't matter what I'm doing. If my client needs my help, then I will make sure I find time for them. I may not be able to talk to them straight away, but then if they are distressed and they need my help, and that happens with a lot of abuse and trauma victims, and I have had that issues previously. And so client says, can you please talk to me? And I'll be like, all right, give me 15 minutes or give me an hour. I'll call you in an hour. Sometimes I'm busy with my work, so I can't, but I really try. So it comes down to that commitment because I am committed to give my 100% to my clients. Right. And also discipline as in because I have a fixed time for my work. My 9 to 5 is for my
Mm-hmm.
work. And then I come home and my 6 to 9 or 10 in the evening is for my business, like my life coaching stuff, but a couple nights a week. And then the other nights I give it to my family. My husband, I have a husband, I have a house to look after everything. And I also have to look after my health as well. So what I do is like a couple nights I look after the business, a couple nights I give to my family. Weekends are for family. Like in the morning time, I do my business thing. But in the evening, it's for him. It's for him. It's for my friends. It's for us. Right. So that's what I do. So it's pretty much being disciplined with your time and anything is possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So here somebody is asking again, like it's really difficult to pursue the theme for a meditation. Yes, I think most of the people, it's very difficult to meditate.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right?
Meditation is not easy at first, because people think meditation has to be in a certain way. When you sit down for meditation, you must like completely your mind should completely stop. It's not like that. And if you start seeing if you want the results right away, it's not going to happen. Like you'll probably see that actually I can actually concentrate better now after 2 weeks. After 3 weeks, you'll be
Mm-hmm.
thinking, I love it actually. I love meditation. After 4 weeks, you'll be like it becomes a part of your life. So you have to be patient with it. And if you feel like you're not going anywhere at first, stick to it anyway. Just stick to it for a month. That's what I would say. Month, you will definitely get somewhere.
I have tried many times, but I have a confusion like when we are meditating, right? So we have to stop the thinking, or we have to just to go with that whatever comes in our mind, or we have to
Exactly.
stop thinking and focus on one thing, or what we have to do exactly.
There are various types of meditation out there. One of them is called mindfulness. So mindfulness is just about being aware of what's happening around you, aware of your
Mm-hmm.
senses, what you're feeling, and also observing your thoughts as well. Just observing your thoughts and not analyzing or judging them or saying anything about it, right? That is mindfulness meditation. And the other kind of meditation is really like focusing on your breath and like trying to concentrate. So there are various ways of doing meditation. There is no right or wrong as long as you can focus. The purpose is to keep you in this calm state and train you to take control over your thoughts. Yes, thoughts will come. Like even like I've been doing meditation for a long time now, but still now thoughts will come to my mind. But it's about acknowledging that you had a thought. Oh, I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
attention, and then bringing yourself back into that breathing or whatever it is that you're focusing on. So don't kill yourself or don't penalize yourself for having that thoughts, because our mind is trained in such a way that it does not stop thinking at all. We need, like, so many people tell me that they have to keep themselves engaged, otherwise the thoughts will kill them, right? Like when they're driving, they have to listen to the music. They cannot just be alone with their thoughts because it drives them crazy, right? So you have to be aware that there is thoughts. There will always be thoughts from your mind. Just observe them, be aware that it's a thought, and then just label it. Say, oh, I just had a thought. Okay, and then come back to what you were doing. That's my best way of doing meditation.
I think the first one you said, that is quite easier, mindfulness or something, because we just have to take
Just
the thoughts,
observe.
whatever it is coming, observe it. Yeah.
Exactly. Just
I
observe
think
whatever it is you're feeling. Yeah.
for beginners, I think that would be better.
Absolutely. Mindfulness is the best way to get started. And then as you get deeper and more experience, then you can go to intermediate and then advanced level of meditation, all of that. And there are various types of meditation. My personal favorite is guided visualization. Guided visualization is pretty much like someone is speaking to you and asking you to imagine something. And so you're imagining this, you're like in front of the beach, and you imagine that your feet are getting wet with the water or something like that. So it just takes you in a different world. But you need to practice mindfulness before to be able to fully indulge in guided visualization meditation, right? So definitely for beginners, go with mindfulness meditation. There are hundreds of meditation videos in YouTube. There's lots of apps as well for meditation. Just get started and be patient with yourself.
Okay, that's cool. So I have seen one thing, like you have been helping people to come out from trauma and various bad relationship. So what is that one thing that is the biggest problem in today's relationship, or how can we overcome that?
In the relationship itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me in a relationship is respect and trust. So when someone is insecure, then they will not trust the other person, and then they start controlling that person in the way that they know, and that's when abuse starts, right? Emotional, financial, sexual, any kind of abuse starts, because the other person wants to take control of that person. And then when there is no respect, obviously you start disrespecting that person. You start taking things for granted, and that's when the relationship starts derailing as well. So trust and respect should be the foundation of any relationship between both men and women. None of them should be respecting the other more. Both of them should be respecting each other equally, and like in our culture, mostly it's the woman who respects the man more. The man kind of thinks, like, looks down on the woman, right? That should change. When both of us are equal, when both of us are like, the two sides of a coin, one cannot survive without the other, right? That's when it will change and everything will be better. That's what I think.
And I think these are the bad impacts of the fictional movies also. They take it
Fictional
in
movies?
that way. Fictional movies, like I think in Bollywood and in Collywood, or let's say fictional movies, the love and relationship are showed very easier. Like it's very easy. Somebody seen a girl and like love happened and all, and people take it that way. That's not exactly real life work. I guess you need your good career for that. For a long term relationship, you need understanding for that. It's not like I have seen her and I fell in love. That's true love. So I think that has also influenced the youth very badly, I guess.
Absolutely, I agree. And the type of love, the type of relationship that's portrayed in the cinemas and the movies, especially in our kind of culture, it looks like it's so perfect. It's like a perfect ideal world. But we are human beings. We are very complex. And when there are priorities, like, like sometimes you have to choose between your career and your relationship. There comes times when you have to make a choice. It's hard to stay. And then like you get distracted. Some people cheat, there's so many things that happen. So that perfect, I believe that there is no perfect happy ending to any relationship. Any relationship is always a work in progress, even though you've been together for 10 years or just been together for 1 month, it's a work in progress. You get to know each other. You have to tune into each other, right? Get to understand the other person, and you grow with each other. When you grow, that person develops certain characteristics, and then you adapt to that person. If you can't adapt, then there will be fights. There'll be differences, and then you'll be apart. Right. So I think this view that there will be a happy ending after, in movies as well, like, okay, we had a big struggle to prove our love, and then we got married, and that's it, we'll live happily after. No, First thing,
Yes.
it's like a lot of relationships don't get to the point of getting married, and getting married honestly is just a start for another journey. It's not like happy ever after. No.
Exactly. So I think we should know each other first before giving our that true feelings, that intense feeling, I guess.
Look, you can do either way, but as long as there is a trust and understanding and a sync between the two people. If there is no sync between the two people, it's not going to work, right? So you can share. Obviously, we share our feelings with our friends too, right? We share. If they are our best
Mhm.
friends, we share our feelings with them. So no problem with sharing, but as long as the other person is completely understanding of you and accepting of you for who you are, because most of the times what happens is you share all of your dirty dark secrets to that person, and share how you're feeling, all your insecurities and everything, and then that person ends up using it against you, right? And just like when you're having a fight, like, they just say, oh, you are this, you are that, because they know all your background and secrets. And that is what you shouldn't be doing in a relationship, using your information against you. That is,
Okay.
I think, a, something that really affects our relationships.
Exactly. So how we can develop a beautiful, or let's say a long-term relationship? What are the keys of a long-term healthy relationship? What do you think?
As I said, trust and respect is the main key for, and communication.
Hmm.
Oh, communication is a big one, because a lot of the times in relationship, what happens is you just expect your partner to understand you, and not have to say anything to them, and just understand you, and you don't communicate what do you want from them, and all of a sudden there is this big fight, and also you take each other for granted, right? Because when you are fresh in a relationship, you're like so caring about that person, you pay attention a lot, and then as you progress towards the relationship, and you progress, and you just kind of, what do you say, become used to that person, then you start taking it for granted. That is something that you shouldn't do it. Like, you should always look at that person as if, like, the first day that you met, you shouldn't forget what it was between you, I think. And that, not taking each other for granted, and always respecting and admiring the person, and remembering what it was like, the first day, the first date, or the first kiss, that
Exactly.
will kind of take you back to reliving that, and not taking each other for granted, and having that happy relationship.
Cool. Okay. So do you think money does matters in a relationship? Like,
Depends on the understanding. If two people are absolutely understanding of each other and supporting of each other, and they have no problem, because the thing is, if one person is very materialistic and values money, the other person doesn't, then there is a problem. And if both of them value money, then there is no problem. But, like, you know what I mean? So, and both of them don't value money, it's fine as well. So it's about what your values are, and how well the other person can cope with it. So money, I don't think it's a problem. Like, there are lots of poor people who are happy with each other, right? They live a happy life. They have a lot of scarcity.
okay, it's I think subjective.
Very, very subjective.
Okay, okay, that's good. So I want to ask you one thing. Like lots of people, employees, students, and all of them are quite frustrated these days, right? Because of this coronavirus lockdown and all, like everything. So what do you want to tell those people who all are like frustrated and all? Maybe some of them lost their job and some are mentally depressed and all.
Yeah.
So
So first thing I would like to tell everyone is, do not leave your routine. Even though you are jobless, you are at home, wake up early morning, do your morning exercise, do your morning routine, eat your healthy breakfast, and go about your day. Don't just sit in your bed in pajamas until
mhm,
12 p.m. and then wake up feeling like really bad. That's the one of the main reasons why your energy level drops during the day. Even though you're not really going to work, even though you are searching for a new job, right? You still need to
mhm,
stick to a routine. Create a routine for yourself and stick with it, like how you would do on a day that you will go to work. Like, for example, for me, there hasn't
mhm.
has not been a day that I have woken up after 6 a.m. Like, even on the weekend, to be honest, sometimes I have a coaching call at 6 a.m. on weekend, because I have clients from all over the world, right? And because of the time difference. And I wake up at 5 a.m. on a weekend, whereas on a weekday I wake up at 6 a.m. So I literally don't get to sleep in. And you know what? And the day that I sleep in, I feel crap. I feel, wow, I wasted my entire morning, or I wasted my entire day. I ruined my day. That's what I feel. So I like to wake up, I have my shower, I do my morning routine, and then I like to even though I don't have anything to do, I just like to be ready, put my dress on, put my makeup on. Not that I put a lot of makeup anyway.
Exactly.
So just put my makeup on, just be normal, like, have a
Okay.
normal day, and that will give you that energy automatically, because when you have a shower, when you put your dress on, like you're going out of the house, your energy is different, isn't it? When you, instead of sitting in the
Exactly.
pajamas, your energy is different, and you already feel motivated now that you're already dressed up. Now, like, okay, let's get some job done. Otherwise you'll be procrastinating. If you sit in the bed, you'll be procrastinating. You'll be like, yeah, I'll do it later. But now that you're already up and running, you're like, yeah, okay, let's do some job searching. And those people are the ones who actually get the job. And
Hmm.
also another thing that I would like to tell you is every chaos also creates opportunities. So there has been so many businesses that are affected by this corona thing, but then there are other businesses who are really thriving, right? And those
Exactly.
businesses
Exactly.
that will thrive are the ones that find a way to pivot. So, and even it applies for people as well. You might have lost a job in a hotel. Go and find a job in the media. Medias are thriving right now, right? Online
Exactly.
businesses are thriving right now. Go and find a job there. So look at where the opportunity lies. Don't just accept that, oh my God, I lost a job. Just don't sit there. Look at opportunities. There's so many opportunities out there in every chaos. That's what I would like to say to the people.
Okay, that's cool. Yes, some of the business like e-commerce and media is like that is booming, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I have seen that in Nepal also. Not those video calls and all application like Zoom and all video conference have not been taken in that way. The way they are taking in coronavirus this time, I guess.
Absolutely. Oh, Zoom has, I think, 10 times its sales. I'm not sure exactly how much, but it had
Exactly.
10 times more sales during this COVID. It is one of the businesses that is thriving.
Exactly. So you have been dealing with the people who are depressed and all. So I want to know the difference between stress and depression. So can that
Mm,
stress be converted into depression, or how to
absolutely.
verify that it's just a stress or it's kind of depression and all?
So what happens when stress is usually temporary. When you are stressed, you are like temporarily
Okay.
stressed because of one particular thing, and
Mm-hmm.
you can easily bounce back. When you take that situation out of you, like for example, you're really stressed at work because you have too much workload. There is so many pressures and deadlines. But as soon as you're out of the work, you are normal,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is stress. But
Exactly.
depression is this constant feeling of low, constant feeling of negative emotions that you cannot manage, you cannot get out of. And they literally sleep with all these negative emotions and negative thoughts, and they wake up with that negative emotions, and they find themselves really hard to get out of the bed. So yes, over time, prolonged stress that is not addressed can lead
Mm-hmm.
to depression. But stress is temporary, and depression seems like more permanent in that aspect.
Okay. So after doing these all stuffs, like you are taking care of yourself, your life, your clients, and all, don't you get depressed sometimes?
Oh, absolutely not. I'm
Not.
not the depressed type. I was depressed at one
Okay.
stage of my life
Yes.
when I had gotten out of my abusive relationship, and my ex was threatening my parents,
Mm.
to get to me because he couldn't get straight to me, so he was using my parents
Okay.
to get to me, and that was the time when I was like really I was mentally disturbed, at that time, and that is the time when I felt depressed for a few days. I was like, I was walking, but I didn't know where I was going. I was that much into fear and all the negative emotions and stuff. So I have been depressed for a little time, but I am a person, I've always been self motivated. And if there is a problem, I'll do whatever it takes to come out of it. I'll do whatever it takes to like bring myself back to normal. This is the type of person I have always been. And I didn't stay depressed for more than a week. I was like, that's a problem. I gotta fix it. So
Okay.
I will never be
So,
depressed, I think.
but I think you might get stressed sometime. At that time, what would you do to come out from that?
When I
What you used
get
to do?
stressed at work, sometimes it happens at work because I have so
Exactly.
much responsibilities. There's so much deadlines. I get stressed, and I literally what I do is I become aware of it, and then I'm like, okay, I'm stressing. What am I stressing about? I ask myself, take a deep breath in, and take like just hold back, not make any decisions, or I will be just pushing back. All right, fine. I gotta take a step back. I'll push my chair back from the from the monitor. I'll like take a deep breath in, and I'll relax myself first physically, and then I'll ask, okay, what am I really stressing about? What is important? What is the priority here? Then I'll set my priorities. Even if it takes me 10 minutes to sort out everything that I need to do, I will set my priorities. I'll write it down. and then I will tackle in that way, because I remind myself when I'm stressed, like, or I'm overwhelmed, I remind myself, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I've got to do one bite at a time. And if I try to eat the whole elephant at the same time, I will not do anything. So this is my strategy. Every single time I'm stressed and overwhelmed, I say to myself, one bite at a time. What is my first bite? And it works.
Okay, as you have got a lot of clients from all over the world, then how do they apply? Or let's say if somebody wants to apply coaching and all, or any type of courses from you, then
Yeah.
how can we apply for that?
Usually I book them for a phone interview with me. So first, it's
Mm-hmm.
important for me to understand the suitability of my program, what I have to offer to that person. Also because for their circumstances, whether it's suitable for them or not. And another thing, I want to gauge through how committed they are. If they are not committed, and if they just want to find out what it is about and like unsure, then those kind of people are not going to get results. You have to be super committed and really willing to do what it takes to get results, right? And the results is not on me, it's on the clients, how much effort they put, how much energy they put. And so I always filter them out with the interview, like pretty much like a call. First initial call, we introduce each other, I get to know them, and I tell them who I am as well. We understand each other, we know each other. Then I'll ask them, what is it that you're looking for, what problems do you have, and then if I see that their problems is something that I don't want to deal with, or I see that they're not committed, then I'll say, look, this is not for you. But others, I'll say, look, this is how I can solve you, like based on understanding their problem. I'll say, okay, based on your problem, I think my program, it will help you. This is how it's going to work. This is how much it's going to cost. And then they make the payment, and that's it. We get started.
Cool. So do you, let's suppose if some of my friend asks me, like, okay, how can I apply for your course, or do he or she have to go to your website or Facebook page or anything like that?
No, pretty much send me a message. Go to my Facebook and send me a messenger. Go to my Facebook or Instagram and send me a message saying, hey, I would like to enroll into your program. Please tell me about it. And then I'll reply to them, and then I will be in touch with them and organize a time to talk. Because, over text, the message is not really conveyed properly. When you talk, it's easier, it's faster, it's more clear. So I prefer to talk to people. And yeah, I'll book a time to talk to them, and then I'll explain everything, how it works. And then if they like, they will go. If they don't like, that's fine, all good.
So initially you were doing with the ladies only, and I think now you have been training both gents and ladies, right?
Yeah, initially I was very much I really wanted to empower women who've been through abuse and trauma like myself, who are struggling with PTSD, who are struggling with self-worth issues, struggling with trust issues, because people who go through abuse, they cannot trust anyone. They absolutely cannot trust anyone. They like a lot of women, they say, I will be single for the rest of my life, but I don't want any man in my life. And that is not right. Not all men are bad, right? And you can't blame and to be honest, I was like that at one stage. I hated all men in the world because of my ex, right? But anyway, I grew out of it, and I wanted to teach them that this is not how you're supposed to live. I'm married to the man of my dreams now, right? And so everyone can. Like, I'm not saying, I never teach them that you'll find the man of your dreams when I say them. That's not my intention. That will happen eventually in due course. But I focus on their personal independence, like emotional independence, because most of the women, they lack their self-worth. They need someone else to tell them that you are worthy. And if their significant other person tells them you are not worthy, you are absolutely a piece of garbage, they tend to believe in it. And then they say to themselves, I'm a piece of garbage. I'm not capable of doing anything. And they don't get a proper job. They never make good friends, and they stick in that abusive relationship because they feel like they don't deserve any better. And my job is to pull them out of all of that. Hey, this is all bullshit. Come out. You deserve much better. And that's what I do. And then I literally empower them, and they thank me 100 times after that. So that's what I do. So that's what I started. So with women, focusing solely on women. But then when a lot of men were inquiring as well when I was doing that, and I was like, well, I'm just limiting my services just to women. So let's be more inclusive and address a lot of people. And that's why I started addressing, and I have quite a few male clients as well, which is good.
Okay, that's cool. So at the end, I think the live is going to be end after a few minutes. So what do you want to tell the people for a minute?
Wow, 1 minute.
Like to everyone, whoever is watching.
Yeah, I'll just start. I think all of you should believe in yourself. Like a lot of the times we say to ourselves, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, I can't do this. We restrict ourselves a lot, right? Tell yourself that all of that is bullshit. I have all the power that I need, all the knowledge and resources that I need. If I don't, I will learn. I will go for what I want. I will not let myself be on my way. So most of the times we are the ones who sabotage ourselves. No one else is stopping us but us. Our thoughts, our processes, and our own, what do you call, like self-sabotaging patterns, right? So
Exactly.
just believe in yourself and believe in the dream and follow your passion. You'll get there. That's what I would like to say to people.
Exactly. So Reshma, thank you so much for your time. Okay, and have a
Thank you.
good
Thank you
day.
very much for having me. You too. Thank you.